Earth is home to many creatures. Some may even consider a few of them monsters. But what of those more elusive and hidden creatures? The ones we just can't seem to find. Welcome to Monday Morning Monsters. Cryptozoologist and paranormal researcher Barnaby Jones talks about the unknown, mythical, undiscovered, and unidentified creatures from around the world, and the people who have seen them, look for them, and research them. Hear from witnesses about their encounters, as well as renowned names in the field about their work and research. Barnaby is the founder and lead investigator for Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society based in Wisconsin. CAPS travels across Wisconsin and beyond looking for connections between different phenomena and how they can all be connected. Now, your host of Monday Morning Monsters, Barnaby Jones.
Hey, good morning, monsters. I am running the show myself today. Our producer had an issue and had to take care of that, so I apologize for any glitches because I'm doing all the work back here too. So we have a great show for you today. I have an amazing guest. He had to cancel, and he is actually here with us today. So we're super excited to have him. A couple things to get off right away here. If you guys have any questions throughout the show, feel free to comment on the wherever you're watching on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or anything like that. If you have any questions for our guest today, if you're on Facebook, Facebook has a privacy thing. And if you want us to know who you are when you comment, just put your name in the comments so we can address you. Otherwise, it comes up as Facebook user. So good morning. Yeah, how's it going? See, we got it all figured out now. All right. A couple quick things here as well. We just got back from the Potographs event this past weekend in Ripon with Dustin Perry and Chris Williams, Shane Pittman, and all kinds of cool people. Really good milestone for one of our past guests here on Monday Morning Monsters, Tim Miley, who has the Potographs charity event. It's a fundraiser based on the love of his dog, Murray. And if you haven't heard his story, go back and listen to the past episodes of Monday Morning Monsters. It's really heartwarming, really good story. And he just hit a huge milestone for money raised for the different humane societies around the country. And so that was really cool to be a part of that event. Congratulations to Tim Miley for that. This weekend, we are going to be down in Iowa at the Van Meter Visitor Festival. Van Meter is was this large pteranodon creature that was seen down there, and they have this celebration every year in honor of it. And there'll be walking tours and vendors and speakers and all kinds of stuff. It should be a great event if you're anywhere. I can't talk this morning. If you are anywhere in the Van Meter, Iowa area, or Iowa or lower Wisconsin or anything, come on out and check us out. Allison Jornlin will be there, Chad Lewis, Steve Ward, I believe. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. We have a link right there for it in our chat. So go check that out. A lot of great speakers, a lot of great vendors. We'll be down there. You can come say hi to us. So I think that, I have one more piece of information here for you. As you know, last week I was on the road. I was down in Nebraska coming back from a conference in Utah. And I got to give a shout out here for the UFO campground and UTV tours. So this property literally is the neighbor to Skinwalker Ranch. And for just $40 a night, you can go out there and camp out and basically stare at the back of the mesa that is the mesa of Skinwalker Ranch. And I got a chance to go out there and do an investigation. There you go. Thank you. And do an investigation out there. I can't talk about it yet. It'll be coming out on one of our platforms from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society next year. Yeah, I do a lot of editing and stuff on it. It was a wonderful night. They're absolutely fabulous people that run this campground. And also, if you haven't got a chance to obviously take the campground tour, they take you out on a UTV up on the mesa, and you get way closer to Skinwalker Ranch than you probably think you can legally. And the reason why they do that is because people kept trying to sneak onto the property, get onto Skinwalker Ranch, and what you're doing is crossing the neighbor's property to get there. So a couple of the neighbors group together and they offer these UTV tours. You can take them. You go on their website that we got right there in the comments section. Thank you very much, Steph. And you can go out there and check it out. And they take you up on the mesa because it actually, Skinwalker does not own certain parts of that mesa. The back property does. And you can get right at the edge of that in some cases and look down right into Skinwalker legally without trespassing. And it's such a cool location, cool event. If you're interested, if you just love the show, if you're interested in the phenomenon that's going on out there, I highly recommend it. I got a chance to do it, both the campground and the tours, and can't say enough about them. Good job, guys. And I told you I will get back to you guys because I have some information for you from that day as well. And I've just been so busy. We did tours last night, and I mean, I've been so busy. But with all that out of the way, it is finally time now here to get to our guest today. My guest on the show today is the founder of the North American Dogman project. And as I said, he was supposed to be on before, had to cancel, and we're so glad that he's here today. So without any further ado, I want to bring in Joedy Cook. Hey, how's it going, sir?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for your service. I know that you were a military man and have served, so I want to thank you right off the bat for that.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got started, and the group that you have?
The North American Dogman project was formed in 2006. We really didn't go online or put up a website or anything until about 2016. We did a lot of private type of investigations, collected data. So we ended up getting a lot of really good stuff. So we said, I think people will be really interested in this. So we went ahead and put a website up, put all of our information out there. We have roughly about 800 members worldwide. We get reports all over the world. Actually, we get the European stuff is a lot more active than the U.S. stuff. I mean, we're getting a lot of stuff in Europe, a lot of stuff out of India, a lot of stuff out of Western Europe, and it's pretty fascinating the stuff that's coming out there because the Europeans, their folklore like werewolves is like very strong, like ghosts and Bigfoot is here in the United States. So we get a lot of really good stuff out of there, and we get so much stuff coming in. We're literally 3 months behind on just getting stuff posted. That is just how much stuff we get.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what got you into all this? What did you how did you get started with it?
Well, I was years ago, I was a UFO researcher. I was really into the UFO stuff. Belonged to a UFO group here in Cincinnati. And this is back in the 80s. And this is when you had public access TV. Okay, cable wasn't around yet. And we did a live show the first Wednesday of every month. It ran for about 10 years. We had live guests that came on. You could call in, talk about your experience. And then we started to get a lot of Bigfoot sightings. People were calling us about that, other cryptid stuff. And myself and George Clapperson decided that, there's something to this. Let's look into this stuff too, why we still do the UFO stuff. And we got into the Bigfoot stuff, and it just, it blew up. Just the whole thing of cryptozoology. We have like the London Frog or Loveland Frog here in Cincinnati and stuff. Did a lot of investigation there, and then just fell in love with it. I mean, I still love the UFO stuff, but the crypto stuff was just so appealing, to me more than it was the UFO stuff. And I stayed with it and been doing it ever since. Yeah, I fell in love with it.
Cool. Do you think that there's a connection between the two? The UFOs and the cryptids?
My personal opinion on this, there's a lot of people that believe that there's some type of connection between UFOs, cryptids, especially Bigfoot. My personal opinion and what I believe from some research that I've done and talked to other people, I don't think that Bigfoot is an alien or he, a pet of a UFO or something to that effect. I believe that what might have happened is, humans get abducted. So why wouldn't they get abducted? And when people see a UFO or Bigfoot after UFO sign, he could have been abducted. They could have released him. The possibility is there. Like I said, a lot of people think that he's a pet or he's some, criminal from another planet. They left here, or he's some type of extraterrestrial. We don't know. But I think the most logic way of looking at it would be that it got abducted. And that's why you see that connection. Same thing with cryptids. Because I've talked to other abductees that have claimed that they have seen an actual Bigfoot laying on a table next to them, or a cow or a deer or some other type of domestic animal, a dog. So it's a possibility to look at. But I'll never tell somebody, no, there is no connection between that, because there is a connection. But I think a lot of people need to be more open on what the connection could be.
That's a really fascinating theory. I mean, like I've given it some thought myself, and I've never actually considered that they've just been abducted like everyone else. That's really cool. So you have the North American Dogman project, and let's start out really basic here. Can you kind of give us an idea of like a description? What are Dogman?
It's a Dogman. First of all, let's talk about the name. I'm one of these people. I really don't like the name Dogman because it really doesn't fit. Man dog is something that's probably more of what it is. It is a upright canine that's very similar to characteristics of a wolf. On reports and sightings that we get, the difference between a domestic wolf and the Dogman is that the hands are more human. The body has more of a massive of a chest, to it. People talk about there's a popping sound, okay, when this thing goes from all fours up to two legs. And what the theory on that is that there's probably a separate set of joints that they're popping from, where the animal's able to have its legs in the right position where it could walk upright, and where its arms are able to go into position where it's moved. Now, when you look at a dog, and if a dog stands up, okay, on his hind legs, his paws are more like this because he can't move. So in order for his arms to move this way, it would have to go into a separate joint system. Okay. And that, like I said, that's a theory when people are hearing the popping sounds. So the basic characteristic of the head is still similar to a wolf, but there's also a lot of reports of one being, sorry about that.
That's right.
Having a hyena style head or much shorter snout, but nothing like your Lon Chaney style werewolf. Now, we've actually had reports similar to that. There was a case in London, Ohio, back in the 1980s, where this family actually saw one, and they described exactly to a T that it was very similar to the Lon Chaney werewolf.
So I'm a little bit familiar on the topic, obviously, with what I do in that. But so there's different kinds of these creatures. Like you kind of touched on there.
Correct.
Different types, different body styles. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's just depending on every researcher or every organization has a different view on the types. The most common is, your type 1 is somewhere between a Bigfoot and a Dogman, where people really just can't figure out what it is. Your type 2 is very much like your typical Van Helsing or Howling style werewolf, but the feet are more human than dog. Then you have your canine, which goes back to, the Howling style werewolf, where the legs are more like a canine. So what's really interesting, in Germany, I actually have a copy of the wood art. In 1831, in this town in Germany, this werewolf came into the town, and they did a drawing of it, and it was actually a type 2 because it was very, werewolf looking, but the feet and the legs were very human. So they did a drawing of it, and it's a very interesting piece. I mean, from head to tail or head to toe, just the detail on what this person put into it is very remarkable. And like you said, the legs and the feet were very human, which is not uncommon for Europe.
So there's also like some people report seeing these like Anubis style looking ones. What as far as like you have like the typical like werewolf looking ones with the like German Shepherd kind of all furry and stuff and that. So what percentage do you see where like these things are the more Anubis human body versus the werewolf dog body kind of?
Actually, we get quite a few. I mean, and what's so remarkable about these, they've all been for either U.S. or Canadian. We had 2 European soldiers that served in Afghanistan that all saw this type of creature in Afghanistan that was very Anubis, is the way they described it. It was a human body with a wolf's head, completely black, high pointed ears. And when they saw it, that's the way they described it. They said this thing was just like Anubis. In one case, in Kandahar Valley, this Canadian squadron, our Canadian unit was there, and they were in a defensive position. And where they were sitting, there was a large wall off to their right in the town there. And they heard a bunch of children running and screaming. So the children were coming around the side of the wall there screaming. So they all, got in position for ready. They heard dogs, and the dogs were barking, and the dogs were coming like right behind the kids. So they decided to open up on the dogs, to save the children. But by the time they did that, the dogs ended up passing the children. The dogs were that scared. And what they ended up doing was popping smoke in that area. And they said out of the smoke, this large, about 10, maybe 12 feet, Anubis looking creature comes walking out of the smoke. And what was so unique about this is they said he was wearing some type of what looked like a pharaoh style garb, like a cloth around his body, no shirt or anything like that, just on his waist area. And they looked at this thing, and it looked at them, and they ended up opening up on it. And he said nothing phased it whatsoever, and it ended up just basically going back to where it came from. And they described it. They said, yeah, this thing was it was Anubis. I mean, it looked like the Egyptian god Anubis. So wow. I thought that was a really interesting case. But we do get them.
Now, do you get cases where these things are like in people's houses?
Oh yeah, down in Kentucky, we had quite a few reports. There was a gentleman that was watching TV one night, and his dog was in the kitchen, just going completely bananas. And he goes into the kitchen, turns the kitchen light on, walks around where the back door is. There's the little dog port where the dog goes in and out. And he said this werewolf had his head and shoulder and arms through the dog port trying to get into the house. And his dog's barking at it. And he's getting a broom, and he said, I'm beating this thing. And he's trying to grab the broom, but he said It was like a werewolf from one of these monster movies. He said this, it wasn't a dog because he said the hands and the arms were human in shape. That was one case in Kentucky. We had another case in Kentucky where a woman was sitting at home with her kids in the living room, waiting for the husband to get home. She heard the door open. So where the living room sits here, and then when you off to the right, there's like a hallway, and you go down the hallway, and that's where the front door is. So the door opened. They heard the door. They heard footsteps coming in. They're saying, "Oh, Daddy's home." So they all get up, and they said this werewolf just came in to their house and was standing right there. She grabbed the children. They ran behind the couch, and she's screaming at this thing, and it's looking at her. And she said it just basically turned around and left. So these things are capable. They're problem solving if they're able to open the door to get in. You get these stories. I know they sound so far fetched, but fiction is stranger than reality. You know what I'm saying? Anything's possible. So, I mean, I think the weirder the story is on a lot of this stuff is probably how more true it is. It's interesting, but we get a lot of cases like that. We get stuff coming. We get stuff where this bus driver would let the kids off at this bus stop, and he would see this thing on the other side of the fence, and he described it as a werewolf. Didn't do anything, but it watched the kids get on the bus in the morning, and it watched the kids get off the bus. Never did anything to harm the children, but she would call the police and say, "Look, there's this werewolf standing on the side of the fence there. Watch," and they would basically laugh her off. And then we had one of our investigators down there, and he was able to get from where he was able to get a pretty good, decent, video of this thing, in the woodlines there, watching the children get on and off the bus. So they are very curious. There's this thing I always say. People ask, are they dangerous? Yeah, they're dangerous. Humans are dangerous too. Humans, we have good humans, bad humans, and we have humans that just aren't right. Okay, so probably it's like that in the Bigfoot field with Bigfoot. It's probably like that with most cryptids. You have good ones, you have bad ones, and you have ones that just aren't right. They're ones that just they don't want to be screwed with. They just want to observe and watch and see what's going on. And then you have some that's just basically that wants to cause trouble. And then you have some that just wants to do harm to people. And you had that in every type of species of animal out there.
We have a comment over here, and I was going to get to this in a second, but where are they coming from? So when we talk about like Bigfoot and stuff, these things have been seen in all 50 states aside from Hawaii. And you're already talking about, you're getting reports from all over the world and that with these things. So when you have these Dogman reports, are you seeing them in all 50 states as well, or 49? Or
50 states, Canada. We're talking right now with 2 Border Patrol agents that had been seeing them on the border, between U.S. and Mexico. And, they're saying, the Border Patrol, they know about these things. They're told to stay away from them, but they're constantly along the border. They have found bodies of people that were mutilated, and they think that it has to be from these things. So they're in every single continent you can think of, even Australia, Africa. We're getting reports from Africa on these things. We're getting reports from India. The 2 Indian guys that are contacting us were both Indian military, and they were finding bodies of Indian soldiers and Chinese soldiers on the border that were mutilated, and both sides was blaming each other for it. And they realized after they found out what they've been seeing, that's what's been killing the soldiers along the border. So they're all over there, all over the world. I think it's the more of a hot spot or more of a violent area is where you have more of these things attacking humans. Because here in the States, we're getting very few well, I can't say very few cases, but we're getting a lot of cases where, you know, people are being mutilated by animals, by dogs. I mean, I've got, autopsy forms right here for, quite a few people that were allegedly attacked by dogs. And when you read the autopsy forms, you can see where the doctor is trying his best to trying to divert of what's going on, because they go back in these reports saying that, they've never seen anything like this before. This is not common for a domestic dog to do. When most dogs will not eat on a human body unless, example, you're in your house, you die, and your dog's in the house, and a month later, dog needs to eat. He's going to eat on you. Okay, that's the cases that you have. But when domestic dogs attack someone, they normally don't eat the people. And on these cases, whatever this thing was, they ate the flesh and body parts off of these people. So these are not domestic dogs that's doing this. And you can tell, like I said, in these reports that they're trying to justify what they're trying to say, and they know they can't justify it anymore because people are actually reading through the lines on this. So it's crazy. So you have that stuff going on here in the United States. It's wicked.
So along those lines, I know like we hear like stories of Bigfoot and stuff, and when we have these sightings and reports and stuff, you seem to see a pattern of more aggression in like the southern states, like Oklahoma and Texas and stuff. And one of the theories that we found with that is that there's, it's hotter, it's drier, there's less food is scarce down there. When you're seeing these attacks and stuff like that from the dogmen, do you have that similar pattern, or is it more widespread?
Yeah, when I was doing Bigfoot research, one thing we figured out is like the Pacific Northwest, the Bigfoot and even the dogmen out there are more docile. They don't want, though they may let you see them, they may let you know they're there, but they're not going to get too violent with you. When you get further going east, then that's when the violence seems to happen. Temperature, the environment, the time of day, all that stuff are factors. Now, when you go east of the Allegheny Mountains, then you're looking at a much more aggressive species of dogman. Same thing with Bigfoot. They're more aggressive on the east side of the country. So you got to take into that factor. But what people need to also look at too, we're inhibiting in their environment, okay, by building new homes and things like that. See, animals, especially predators, they normally stay within the area that they were born in. Okay, if the food source is there, if the water source is there, there's no reason for them to leave. If there's a compatible mate, they'll stay in that area. Yeah, they may wander off, but they're always going to come back. Same thing with humans. Okay, the human species, we normally live within 10 miles of where we were born. Okay, most humans are like that. We only leave if the environment changes. Same thing with them. With us, if we get a new job, we go to school, we join the military, but we always come back. Okay, same thing with them. They're going to stay within that environment unless something happens in that environment that makes them leave. But same thing when it comes to the Bigfoot stuff. You're always going to have one that's going to say, well, Mom, I need to go sow my oats somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? And I need to expand and see what's out there. And you're going to have the rogue ones that does that. But normally they're going to stay within the same area.
Let's talk a little bit about like, obviously you have gone out and researched these things in the field, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about like behaviors and patterns and stuff like that. What are you seeing like from these things in the wild? Not just the stories, but like behaviors, eating patterns, migrational or food patterns, or any of that stuff. What can you tell us?
Well, the most common thing with Dogman is that when they do a kill, we notice that their kills are a lot different from most predators. We've seen some very unusual kills. Like we have a picture of a deer, a female deer, that you can see where the deer was laying and where the deer was dragged out. Okay, because there's like a whole trail of the white hair on their stomach. Okay. What this thing did was rip the back legs off completely. Okay. Threw the back legs down, ripped the stomach open. It took, I think it was the liver. I think what we saw was the liver that was taken out of there, and the neck was broke. Okay. But it ended up pulling some of the entrails out in order to get to what it took. Now, that body was there for at least 5 days before we got there, because the entrails were already turning brown. Okay. And the smell started to come on. But what was unusual about this is that the legs and the entrails were still there. No other predator went near that body and took the legs and ran off with it, took the entrails. I mean, there's coyotes that were all in this area. So something either put a scent on that kill where it was going to come back later for it, and all the other predators knew not to come near it. And we've seen that quite a few times. We found deers where the back of the hide from the tail has been completely ripped over to the head. We've never seen that by any other predator. And even on a I mean, are you a hunter by any chance?
I'm not, no.
Okay. Well, if someone poaches, okay, they go in, get what they want to get, and get out. I mean, it's very messy the way it's done. But these animals are taking time on what they're doing. And the fact of it is that no other predator is going near it. That's how we can kind of tell that this is their kill. Because if you're in an area where there's a lot of predators, like coyotes that are scavengers, I mean, porcupines and raccoons and stuff, they'll eat flesh. I mean, people don't realize a squirrel will go up into a tree and eat the baby birds. They're carnivores, and they would do the same thing. If the food source is there, they're going to eat. But when you have something like that and there is absolutely no other predator coming near it, it's an awfully strong, kill, and something dominant is doing it, and these predators know to stay away from it. So that's one characteristic of what we see. We see a lot of markings of scratch marks on the tree. Now we have bears in Ohio, Pennsylvania, some of these other states, but bears normally, when they mark a tree, they'll mark a tree no more than 2 times, if that. Okay. Okay. And bears normally mark a tree. They'll mark it at a high level, and it's just there. We're finding trees with just claw marks, just going from 10 feet, going all the way down to the trunk of the tree. Bears do not do that. They do not do that. They always mark where they'll lift their arms up and mark. And like I said, and we got this confirmed through the U.S. Forestry Service, in the DNR, that it normally 2 times is when they'll mark the tree. Most of the time it's just 1 time. But when you got literally when I'm talking 30, 40 marks on the tree, something's there dominant, letting everybody know this is my area. So we see a lot of that stuff.
Do you think that's like a territorial marking, or are they like sharpening claws or cleaning their claws or anything like that? Or
I think it's territorial marking, because here's another thing that we're finding on the trees, that which is very uncommon for bears to do, is that their bite marks, like a frontal bite mark, is being taken out of the tree. And we've got photographs of that. And bears do not do that at all. We got that confirmed through the U.S. Forestry Service and some of the other state DNRs. And that's a definitely territorial mark, where it's able to bite a frontal bite out of the tree. And these are pretty deep, and you can see where the teeth are. Now in Texas, there's an individual down there that, running into the same thing, where these things are ripping on the tree. And we even got a claw mark, where a claw mark got stuck in the tree. And we actually have the claw, from that. So we had the claw mark looked at. We didn't get any DNA on it, because there was not enough DNA, or enough of it to do a DNA scan on it. But the people said it's definitely canine, and you can see that it has some type of fungus on their nail. So, which was kind of interesting.
So have you gotten any kind of DNA samples, hair samples of these things? Is there any, like, we had the whole Melba Ketchum thing with Bigfoot. Has there been any work like that for DNA analysis of dogmen?
Yeah, we have one set of hair that came back of an unknown species of canine. And with that, basically, they're saying that it didn't match up to any known domestic dog. It did not match up to any known domestic wolf or coyote that's here in North America. But it shows traits of similarity to a wolf and a German Shepherd, or what they call, I think he called it like an Indian dog.
Okay.
Which is something similar to a German Shepherd. It showed traces in that, but there's still similarities in there that just didn't match up to anything. So we've got that one sample there, which is kind of unique. Yeah.
Very cool. So where are these things like okay, well let me start with this first. I've been listening to like some of the like Dogman Encounters radio and stuff like that, and just from listening to some of the interviews and stuff, I started to pick up locations that seem to have a lot of activity. And one of those was around quarries.
Mm-hmm.
So have you noticed a similar thing? Like, where are people seeing? Well, obviously where people are, but is there like any kind of pattern to where these things are being seen, like always in the woods, by water, or by quarries? Like, is there any kind of relationship there with that?
Well, what we're finding out on like rock quarries and things like that, we're actually getting more reports of Bigfoot in rock quarry areas than actually Dogman. We're getting Dogman sightings that are actually within a 2-mile radius of a community, which is, to me, it's terrifying, knowing that they're that close. But we're getting a lot of reports. We went out to Utah to do an investigation, which was about 10 miles south of the Skinwalker Ranch. And what this small little community, it was a farming community, and there were probably about 6 or 7 houses, I think, that were in the area. They were pretty well spread out, but you were able to see them, and you were able to yell at each other's house to say, "Hey, neighbor." And all of them had cattle and horses and sheep and things like that. And they said, well, we knew that there's a big wood line there next, next to them, and it was the hills and stuff. And they said, we know there's a Bigfoot there. Okay, we've seen it. We've seen it cross their fields and so forth, but it never harmed any of the livestock. It never bothered anybody. It would go into the cornfields, eat the corn, soybeans, things like that. No one said anything because it wasn't hurting anybody. And they said, then we start seeing this large canine creature walking on two legs. Then small animals are coming up missing. Horses are being attacked. Things like that. These things are coming up to the people's houses. And you can, we got pictures where handprints are actually on the windows where they were looking in. And you saw the footprints right there by the windows. And they're actually coming up on the porches. And we have pictures of these horses that were attacked. And what was unusual about these horses that were attacked, they were all attacked from the front. And literally five claw marks were going down the chest of these horses. Now, everybody knows a horse can kill you. These are strong animals. That's why predators attack them from behind, to get on them and get them down in the ground. Whatever is attacking these horses all came in straight front forward to the horse, which is unusual for a predator to do. So what this one was doing, it ended up killing a fawn, and it would lay it in someone's driveway. So they would take it and go put it into the woods, and then that evening it's laying back on the people's driveway. And then they would go bury it, and then it would dig it up and lay it back there again. I mean, this thing was toying with the people. That's intelligence. And they know it's this creature doing it, because whatever dug it up, you can see where they said you can sit there and see where it actually dug it up. So they're fine. So all these trees are having all these claw marks. So we got all these pictures of these claw marks, like I talked about before, going around all these trees in this community. So we know there's at least one that's doing it, possibly more than one. And the people are saying, we've never had a police present in this area. Never. If we ever had to call the police, it took the state police or the sheriff's department 30, 40 minutes to get there. Okay. But they said you saw them every day and every evening. You see the police riding around, or you see the DNR riding around. So they know there's something there. But we got a lot of really good evidence out of that area, with the photographs of the horses that were attacked. We got a picture of the fawn that they threw up on, that this thing kept digging up. We got, it was able to get a picture of it. The markings on the trees. We actually got a picture of one of the people in the community who was sitting in her backyard, and there's like bushes there, and there's kind of like an opening like this in the bush. So she sees something standing there, kind of moving. It's dark in there. So she ends up getting her camera, which was a Nikon 580 or something like that. And she took a picture. And when you blow the picture up, you can see this thing as clear as day. The mouth is open. You see the tongue. You see the eyes. And it's sitting back in there watching her. So we actually got a picture of that creature that's in that area. It's kind of unique looking. Yeah. Very, very neat and stuff. I'll send the stuff to you if you're interested in looking at it.
I would. Yeah, I'd definitely take a look. Stephanie would like to know, is in the attacks, are you able to prove a consistent pattern? For example, distance between cuts, depth, and shape. So maybe can you determine like specific creatures or like an individual based on patterns of this in an area, or are you noticing similar, like, are all of these things very similar looking in different areas?
You're talking about the wounds on the animals, or
either way? Yeah, this one looks like we're talking about the attacks. So yeah, the animal
the
attack.
thing on, like I said, on the horses, that we got from the pictures from Utah, we had some horse attacks here in Ohio, and then we had one in Kentucky. And what we noticed on all of these victims of the horses is that all the attacks were from the front, and there were 5 finger claw marks that was either on the front part of the chest or on the neck. Now, we did an investigation up in Akron, Ohio, where this guy, he had a kennel where he raised German Shepherds. Okay, he had 15 of them. 8 of them were male, the rest were female. And he was out, and he was in a remote area. Okay, so he's single father with a daughter. So he's out in the wood line behind the kennel, just walking with his daughter. She was a young girl, and she, just out there, just picking flowers, just, family time. And then he saw what was a large dog, okay, in the distance. And it stopped and looked at him. He, what did one of our dogs get out? But he noticed this thing was completely all black. And then he said it stood up on 2 legs and took 2 steps forward. Now, his daughter didn't see this because he was trying to get her attention on him while he's seeing this thing. So he was able to get his daughter. They went back to the house. A day or so nothing happened. And then he came out one morning because he heard the dogs bark, and he saw one of his dogs was killed. Okay. So this thing kept coming in and killing all the males off. So we have pictures of the dogs, what they did. These were frontal attacks, bite marks along the arms of the dogs, bite marks on the head, the ears, and the throat. We have a video of one where it tore the back of the kennel off and came in on the dog. We have x-rays of the dogs where you can see the trauma on the necks where this thing was biting down on the necks. It was very horrible what happened to these dogs. So nothing happened to the females. So he had a vet come out and was looking at everything. And then the police came out. They're saying, oh, yeah, it's probably, coyotes coming in. He's like, look, these are German Shepherds. Okay, these things eat coyotes. Okay, something's coming in after these dogs. So after the last shepherd was killed and he took the body to the vet to get examined, and he couldn't get any reports from the vet. He was able to get some of the x-rays and stuff. And then a group came out saying they were with the SPCA. And they go, for your dog's safeties and for yours, we're going to confiscate the females. Okay, they confiscated the females. He said 3 days later, he calls the SPCA saying, hey, what's going on? Where's my dogs? They're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We didn't come and get your dogs. He goes, yes, you did. You came and took 7 of my female German Shepherds. Where are they? And they're like, dude, we never came and touched your dogs. Someone came out and confiscated the dogs. And he was telling me, he goes, I'm wondering, one, did this thing might have mated with the females? And that's why he killed the males off. He said that's typical of dogs to do that. And maybe they're seeing if there's a hybrid in there. It was a whole strange situation. He packed his bags and sold his property, and he says, I'm getting out of the business. He said, this is too weird. What's going on? I had a fight with my insurance company to get, insurance payment on the dogs. The dogs are getting confiscated. I have no idea who has them. They came up saying they were the SPCA. The SPCA, says it's not us. He threatened to take the dog warden to court. And the dog warden's like, dude, I'm telling you, I'm being as honest with you as I can. It wasn't us. Someone else did it, but it wasn't us. So it's kind of a really strange situation that went on in that case. And like I said, what this thing did to these dogs was, it was horrible. I've seen dog fights before, you know, everybody sees dogs get attacked and stuff, but this thing was just brutal with these dogs. You know, I mean, it was extremely heartbreaking to see the bodies and things like that. What was done, because you knew when you were there and you saw what happened, you knew that this was something supernatural or cryptid that did what it did. You know, it's yeah.
Yeah, actually, while you're talking, I was wondering if you'd heard anything about like crossbreeding, and you kind of came around to that. But have you had any other cases where, you know, like puppies have been like sired out of this, or?
I just, one guy contacted us, but he also contacted um, one of these other podcasts a few years ago, where he found what he thought was a baby wolf in the woods, and he took it back, had it in his barn, and he said it was extremely aggressive, but he noticed things about it that wasn't normal. Like the front paws were more like hands. It had a thumb. It was always on two legs. And this is, probably a month or two old. He said it was that little, but it was moving around more, like a bear its age would have been moving around, standing, things like that. And he basically, I mean, he kept trying to bite him. It was trying to scratch him. And he's like, why didn't you take any pictures of this thing? And he goes, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think about it, because you don't think about it, because I had no idea what this thing was. I thought it was just something different. I don't believe in this stuff. It was just something different. He goes, I knew there's something different about this, and Mom was going to come looking for it. So he ends up taking it out and put it right back where he found it, and he said that was it, but that's the only thing we've ever had of a pup or a young one ever seen or touched or anything like that. But I'm sure there's some out there.
Yeah. When you talk about the hands and stuff, like, do people report like opposable thumbs like a human? Because I know, like with Bigfoot, they're supposed to be more straight and not opposable. So what do you get with that?
When they say thumb, because we talked to a lot of people in depth about that. They saw the hands. Okay, when they say hands like human, they're not specifically saying it's like a human. It's just that it had elongated fingers, and it had a appendage that was a little bit further back, what was more like a thumb.
Okay.
We had another case in Akron, which was kind of unique. There's this guy, 68-year-old hunter, okay? Good old boy, nicest fellow you have ever want to talk to, was out turkey hunting. That's his thing. Loves turkeys. And he was going to go get a turkey for Thanksgiving. And he's going through the woods. He hears the turkeys. So he's like, okay, so he's got to go through this little opening to get to where he needs to go. And as soon as he gets into the opening, he said the turkeys just literally stopped. So he goes, okay, they heard me, so I'm just going to stand there till I start hearing them gobble again. And he goes, 5 dogs came running out at me on 2 legs and surrounded me. At no time did he say dog man, did he say big werewolves, anything. He said dogs. Okay. He said 4 of them were male. They were much larger. He goes, I was able to see the genitals. He said the genitals were human. He goes, I'm not kidding you. These were human genitals that were on these things. The one that was showing most of the aggression was a smaller one, was a female, because he didn't see the genitals on her. But she was the alpha. And he goes, I had a rifle in my hand, and they're kind of coming in closer. So I raised my rifle down towards the alpha, and they said they would back up. So obviously they knew what a gun was, and they kept growling at him and, you know, snarkling and all this stuff. But one thing he said, besides the genitals being more human, he described the hands of being very human, elongated, like a thumb that was on there. He said some of them had their arms down to their waist, but he said some of them had their arms that were up like this, like, because the best way I can describe it is a dog bagging. That's how they had their arms, and that's how I was able to see what these things look like. Because they look like a German Shepherd. Some of them did. He said some looked like a wolf. You know, they were, you know, black. Some were black. Some were brown. He said one was almost identical to what a German Shepherd, a saddle, you know, pattern on it. Brown snout, deep brown eyes. They were typical, you know, dog eyes and stuff. And he said without him, they were basically moving him back into the wood line. So he got back into the wood line and they moved off. So my theory on that is they were hunting the turkeys the same time he was, and they were moving him out, you know, to get you know, to eat the turkeys. But he goes, I'll never go hunting again. He goes, I can't tell you what he said. They were dogs. I mean, to me, they were dogs. He goes, I have no idea. Because I asked him, I said, have you ever heard of Dogman? You know, ever heard of a werewolf? And when I said werewolf, he, you know, that Lon Chaney werewolf? No, these weren't like Lon Chaney werewolf. You know, but he said they were dogs. And it was, I mean, really unique story. And I really believe this guy because the way he was telling the story, the way he was describing these things, because he kept saying dog, dog, dog. You know, so yeah, we get a lot of really neat cases like this coming in and out of all over, like Europe. Give you an example, a lot of sightings in the UK, very big amount of sightings in the UK. You get sightings in Germany. We have a lot of sightings that's coming out right now of Transylvania, of all places. There was this company is working with a U.S. company. They took Dracula's castle in Romania, and they're making it into a hotel, so where people can go stay there. And one of the guys from the American company contacted us and said, you know, do you guys deal with this werewolf stuff? And we go, yeah. And he goes, I'm going to tell you something. I just got back from Romania, and we're working on Dracula's castle to turn into a hotel where people can stay there. And he goes, man, I'm telling you, these things are real. They're like all over the place out there. He goes, you cannot drive down the road at night and without seeing one, or they're outside by the castle watching what you're doing. And he's describing these things as a T to what's in like the Howling movie or Van Helsing. And he goes, man, I never thought these things, I thought this was Hollywood until I've seen these things. He said, you see them all the time. And the people of Romania, they're like, oh yeah. They don't bother you unless you bother them. You know, and that's the thing with the Europeans, is that the Europeans know these things are there. They know they exist. It's part of their culture. And they're very more open to it than we are, because they grew up with stories and legends from, you know, Oma and Opa, you know, going all the way down the line, you know, and it's something that was always there. So they know it's there. Europe, like I said, the UK is another place. It's just tremendous amount of werewolf stuff. And that's what they call it, werewolves. They don't call it dogman. They call them werewolves in Europe. So
have you ever got any reports of them like transforming, like you know, like a werewolf or a shapeshifter or anything?
No, never had anything like that. And I'll be honest with you, we kind of stay away from that because let's be real for a minute here, okay? It's totally impossible for one organism to switch into another organism, okay? It would be dangerous. Your body would have to be cartilage. It would totally destroy your kidneys, your chest, your lungs, everything like that, your organs. Okay, it's totally impossible. Uh, that's my belief. Now I know in Europe it's a different situation, especially in UK. They talk about this, but here's something that's really I find compelling with a lot of reports that we get. We get reports of these things wearing clothing. Okay, we had one 5 miles from where I live, where a young lady was jogging, and there was a wood line there that kind of went down the hill, did in the wood line, and she goes, "There's a werewolf standing there with a white shirt on," and she goes, she described it to the T. Bart Nutley, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a dogman researcher. His mother saw one wearing clothing in Kentucky. So the theory behind that is, I think what these things are trying to do is mimic humans. Because if they wear clothes, they think they can disguise themselves. It's a theory, okay, but you have to wonder, where are they getting the clothes from? Okay, that's the big question. Could it be from victims? Could it be from a dump site? It could be from anything. But we do get those. The most compelling reports that we've got of clothing on a dog man. We've had 3 reports come in from 3 different parts of the country where people went to a cemetery to visit loved ones, and they would see these dog-headed men wearing cloaks in the cemeteries. And and we're talking like a 3-year period between the 3 sightings, okay, and in different parts of the country. That's unusual. I mean, for something like that. But if you sit there and think about it, why are these things wearing cloaks? Why are they in cemeteries? Well, if you look at the hellhound, okay, the story behind the hellhound is that his job was to guard the cemetery to protect the souls from the demons. Okay. Could they really exist? Could what these people saw, could these be hellhounds that were protecting the souls in the cemetery? I mean, it's interesting, but when you have 4 people on 3 different sightings and 3 different parts of the country within a 3-year period seeing the same thing, that's, there got to be something to it, and that's my only theory that you can think of. That's what these things are. And they're all describing the same. They're all wearing a gray cloak, a gray hooded cloak. Now, if there's somebody running through the cemeteries, different parts of the cemeteries, all across the United States, every day of the year, hoping to get seen, that's one heck of a little fun joke someone's doing. But, there's something to it. But like I said, if you look at the hellhound theory, that's interesting. That's maybe what they're seeing.
Yeah, I believe it's a old mythology or like an old practice where whenever you establish a new cemetery, the first thing you buried there was a dog.
Right.
And like you said, the dog was supposed to be the protector, the guardian, or a church grim is
right.
what you hear a lot of them called. And these are these
Correct.
large black dogs that people are seeing in cemeteries and that. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. And the fact that, all the stories of, none of, like I said, none of these people knew each other, but all the stories are very the same. So that's interesting. And we've actually, cemeteries are, what's kind of, I have a picture of a Bigfoot digging in a cemetery. We have a cemetery up by where I live where, I'm trying to think, there was a Ohio president a president of the United States that was from Ohio. I can't remember his name. It just slipped my mind, but he's buried about a mile from where I live. And they got this big monument and everything there. But the cemetery next to him, you have to go up a bunch of wooden concrete steps to get there. And no one has been, the last person that was buried there was right after the Civil War. Okay. So there's no new graves or anything in there. Excuse me. But they keep the cemetery maintained because of the history that's there. And one of our researchers, it was during the fall, wanted to go up and get pictures of the cemetery. Okay. And some of the old tombstones. And as she was coming up, she got on top and she took a step and she goes, there was a gorilla digging in the ground. So I snapped the picture and I ran. So we got the picture and you can see the picture really well. You can see the arm. It's massive. It has that gorilla style forearm with a lot of hair. You see the face. You can see the ear. You can see the coloring of the hair compared to the coloring of the skin. And you can see where it's got its arm out digging. So we went back up there and we found the hole where it dug. And we stood in the same spot she took and took the picture and put the picture side by side. So it lines up perfect. So you can tell what she saw, what was there, and not a tree or a branch or anything, to that effect. So it's a very interesting picture.
How big was it?
It was sitting on the ground. She said it was sitting down the ground, cross-legged.
Okay.
Leaning forward, digging. So I imagine this thing was probably 6-7 feet, probably. But you can, from the picture, you can tell this thing is pretty damn massive. Yeah.
So what else have you found for these things? Like, do you know, like, do they live in dens or caves, or have you found any kind of like where they're hanging out and stuff?
Well, we're not sure. We believe that, they are probably living in some type of a den, possibly a cave. There was a report that we got out of Indiana where one was living in a abandoned house in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So we went there. We found hair samples where something was laying in an area. We found a lot of scratch marks and stuff that was on the inside of the house. But we couldn't find anything to actually prove that there was something there. But the stench was very much, like a wet dog and very much like something dead, a really bad odor, which is very common with, Dogman sightings. But, we had a trail cam we set up and we didn't get anything on it. But, people have, stated they've seen this thing, in that house there when walking in the woods.
I have heard stories like that before of like old abandoned
Houses.
buildings and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got a comment here. I know we kind of touched on this already. In Germany, there are old stories of wolf belts where people have dressed and this turned into werewolves. The belts are in some museums to look at. So we did kind of talk a little bit about the transforming and stuff like that. But on this kind of topic, can you talk about like, a lot of the Bigfoots and stuff, the Native Americans and other Native people have other stories of these things dating back. Do you see that similarity with the Dogman people and that? I know obviously we know of like the Skinwalker lore,
right,
and these belts and that too as well, I've heard of. But do they have stories of these creatures like living among them as well?
Yeah, we know from the area I live in, we had the Shawnee and we had the Cherokee, and we have a lot of mounds in my area. We have a Native American museum. And some of the Shawnee, when we talk to the Shawnee, I'm going to try and say this without being disrespectful. The Shawnee are probably one of the most racist tribes. Okay. They don't like anybody. I mean, even their own people, other Native Americans, they look at everybody, even the white man, as below them. Okay. Um, but they're very proud people, very strong people. Um, but they hold a really strong grudge against Europeans. Okay. And that's understandable. Okay. That's understandable. But when you get to know them and talk with them like I have, they open up to you and things like that. But they won't tell you a whole lot of stuff because now they have mass representations of Bigfoot and Dogman and dolls and things like that. And they won't show the white man because they know the white man's evil and they're afraid that it's going to bring the evil out and it's going to bring the evil out on them. That's understandable. But we know the Shawnee, we know the Cherokee, okay, has had, these creatures. It's mostly actually woodland Indians on the east side. I couldn't find anything in the plains except for the skinwalker. Okay. But when you get to the woodland Indians on the East Coast, yeah, the dog that walks like a man, the dog that looks like a man, you hear a lot about that. The man dog and so forth. Skinwalker is not a big common name on the east side with woodland Indians. But yeah, we do get those a lot. But like I said, depending on what tribe it is and depending on, how well you can be able to talk with them. I was able to friend a storyteller from the Shawnee Indians, and I got to know him for quite a few years. He was, he trusts me, and he opened up a lot about the supernatural and things like that with Dogman and Bigfoot. So the Cherokee has a lot more stories when it comes to Bigfoot. Give you a perfect example. You're familiar with the booger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the booger dance. Well, the booger dance it's a Bigfoot that dances with the children with the basket, and basically what it is that if you don't pay attention to your parents, do what you're told to do, your chores and stuff, the boogeyman's going to come and get you and take you away. Well, white culture picked that up. If you don't go to bed, the boogeyman's going to get you. So it's something that we picked up from the Cherokees. But when it comes to Dogman, they do have very limited amount of stories that of a dog that walks like a man. Okay. And the reason why I say that they're very limited, because when you look at the historical of Dogman in the United States, there's hardly any evidence going past the 1800s that you can literally find, except for some stories that been in the family and some Native American stories. But when you deal with the Native Americans on stories, you have to understand they look at things different than we do. When they look at a turtle or they look at a hawk or they look at a bear or they look at a wolf, they see it different from what we do. They represent it different than what we do. Okay. Bigfoot, for an example, Native Americans will tell you he's not a creature. He's another Indian. He's a fellow Indian. He's from a tribe. He's one of them. He's the boss of the woods. He's different in appearance, but he's one of them. He's not some monster. Now, when it came to Dogman, they always looked at it as a supernatural thing, meaning that when you saw it or you ran across it, something's not right. Something not good is going to happen. So there's some type of supernatural aspect to that. But like I said, just trying to decipher what their view of something is much harder because they see things different than we do. when it comes to the moon, the stars, it's a lot more difficult. And just get him to open up about it. That's the big thing.
So with, like we were talking about Bigfoot and stuff, you do have somewhat of a fossil record that we can kind of pin these things back to.
Right.
You have Gigantopithecus, you have the other,
Right.
caveman and then that eras and stuff like that. You don't have that with these Dogman creatures per se. So do you think that there is a cause for these things to exist? Or do you think that it's possible these are more like a supernatural being outside of the natural realm?
Well, I think there's a much bigger supernatural part to Dogman than a physical part to Dogman. Okay. But everybody knows, Mother Nature cleans up after herself. If not, we would have piles of bones going all the way back to where the dinosaurs are. Let me say this. I'm going to say it this way, and I think this will probably answer your question. If I had $1 million, I would lay that $1 million on the table, and I would guarantee somewhere inside the Smithsonian Institute, there's a remains of a Bigfoot and a remains of a Dogman. I guarantee it. Do they know it's there? Probably not. Mm-hmm. But there again, they probably do. Smithsonian only puts out a specimen if they have more than one. There's probably a remains of a Bigfoot or a Dogman or an unidentified type of canine or unidentified type of man sitting in a crate under some steps somewhere in the basement that's been there, 150 years. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, when Monster Quest did the show about the bear, the long-nosed bear, okay, mm-hmm. Still being in existence. Doug Hychek, I was talking with him and his people about this. It took the Smithsonian almost a week just to find that skull. Okay. And they weren't even sure that skull that they found was actually it. Because they don't know where everything is because they're still cataloging stuff from paper into the computer. There's 17 facilities there going 10 stories underground. They don't know what they have in that place. So that's what I'm saying. I know there's fossil records of a Dogman and fossil records of Bigfoot, and Smithsonian's got it somewhere. Either they know about it or they don't. So I hope that answered your question that way.
Very good. Yeah. I have one last question for you, and we're going to head out here. If anybody has any more quick questions in the comments, feel free to post them so we can get them in. Otherwise, my last question for you is, do you have any advice for people that have experienced a Dogman, have them on their property, or are experiencing any issues with these? Do you have any advice for people that are maybe experiencing that?
Yeah, I mean, I would not approach it. It's very dangerous to do. Dogs or canines in general, okay? If you look at them in the eye or if you stare at them too long, it's a challenge, okay? Probably very much same thing with them. If you're having issues with one, contact us. Go on our website, www.NorthAmericanDogmanProject.com. Send us a message. We'll contact you back, okay? Contact us. Well, we have teams all over the country. We'll get somebody out there and to observe what's going on. But, don't be aggressive with this thing. Don't try to kill it unless, it's putting your life or your family's life in danger. If it wanted to get you, it would have got to you. Okay. It's probably curious, but if it starts messing with your livestock or start messing with your family animal, then you have a problem on your hands because it's going to move from that to you. So contact us. And if you're going to call anybody, any type of authority, don't call the police, call, the DNR because, the Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife Management, they're the ones that could probably handle this thing a lot better than law enforcement. Those are the people I would call. They're more likely to believe you than a police officer would.
Very good. Have you had any experience, like a lot of people put up like lights or trail cams tends to keep Bigfoot back a little? Have you noticed the same thing with Dogman?
Oh yeah, because the thing of it is, I believe that Bigfoot and Dogman can see that infrared light on a trail cam. I'm a firm believer that they can see that, and that's why no one's getting them on camera, because they're able to see that. And two, trail cams are plastic, so they're made out of petroleum. It attracts bears. A bear will go up and eat your trail cam because they smell it. Bigfoot and Dogman, it's probably not a good scent to them, so they probably won't. Now, what we do when we go out, we work with a wolf sanctuary, so we're able to get um, urine from male and female wolves, and we'll use those as pheromones out into the field, hopefully try to drag it in. Now, the female ones, we normally use the female urine around this time of the year because this is mating season. So it would hopefully we try to draw something in.
All right, we have one last question or comment here from a listener. It says in the Catholic Church there are some pictures of priests with dog heads, and thank you for a good interview. I believe that would be Saint Christopher.
Right, and the story behind Saint Christopher, which is really odd, if you go and you do research on that, Saint Christopher was the only surviving member of the dog-headed people that the Catholic Church had war with, and they basically saved his life, turned him into a Christian, and made him a saint. Now, you have to understand, at that time, when Christianity was getting away from the paganism part of that part of the church and start coming with the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, it was easier for people to believe in a man, a ghost, and a spirit than a dog-headed person or a goat-headed person or something to that effect. So that's why they changed his head from a dog to a human. But his original picture is sitting in the Vatican Museum. So it's still up on the wall in the Vatican Museum. So there is proof that he did exist. He did have a dog head. And if you look at, especially in Middle Eastern culture and Greek mythology, along with Viking mythology, and Europe, going back before Christ, they talk about races of people with dog heads that they were able to communicate with and do trade with, and they had war with. The Vikings talk about going to war with them. I can't think, the Germanians, like right before the Roman Empire took Germany. Okay, the Germans that were there spoke about going to war with dog-headed men, but I can't remember the name of the Germans at that period of time. But I know it took place, from when I was doing my research, it took place before Rome actually came in and conquered Germania. So, but they were talking about even the Romans talk about, having conflicts with dog-headed men. So these people did exist, and maybe it was the Catholic Church or that killed them all off, because, humans cannot coexist with any other species, especially another species that's human.
Man, I feel like I could talk to you for the rest of the day and still not cover everything with this topic and stuff. And yeah. I appreciate you coming back on. And I know we had a little problem with scheduling at first and had to reschedule this, but I mean, it's been an absolute honor having you on the show. And
anytime. Yeah.
I would love to have you back again, obviously
anytime. Yeah, great. Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot to tell us about UFOs and Bigfoot as well, because
actually, I'll tell you, I was in the Army, and I had a Bigfoot sighting in the Army on a U.S. military base. So I'll save that story next time.
Part 2.
Part 2.
Awesome. So we have the North American Dogman Project.com. We have that up on the screen. Anywhere else, how can people get a hold of you, your organization, and how to get some help from you if they need it?
They can contact me. Look for me on Facebook. My profile picture is a picture of me in Iraq. If you go on Facebook and you just type in North American Dogman Project, we have a bunch of different pages on there. You can just say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of Joedy Cook. Can you get me in contact with them? And hit one of them pages there. They'll get me in contact with you. My email address is oc4bfs@hotmail.com. So it's Oscar Charlie, the number 4, Bravo Frank Sierra @hotmail.com. You can contact me through that way. So those are the ways you can get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being a guest on today's show. If you guys want to come check out Wisconsin Caps, we are going to be in Van Meter, Iowa this coming weekend, and I don't even know where we're going to be in October, so I'll get back to you on that. We're going to be at a bunch of events coming up, a lot of cool stuff. October's very busy. But again, thank you again for being our guest on today's show.
Thanks, everybody, for being there. Thank you.
Check out his website. Go over there and check out the North American Dogman Project.com. And until next time, guys, we'll see you out there. Bye. Take care.
Take care.